Hello, we appreciate everyone being here today. I'd like to welcome Lauren Alvarez. We are going to do our presentation on setting goals for the new year with a self-compassion lens. So you are in for a treat tonight. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Erin. We'll go ahead and jump right in. Like she said, I am Lauren Alvarez. I am a school counselor by day for third and fourth graders at Jenks East Elementary. But I've been working in parent education and family support and all those things for over 20 years now. So I also work as a parent educator. I've used parents as teachers, teach active parenting weekly for family and children services. Also been trained with practical parent education. And then I do a lot of parenting classes for Family and Children Services. It's a great community mental health center and divorce workshops. And then I really appreciate you all coming to this Oklahoma Family Network event. So love working with Erin and Oklahoma Family Network. I have my own family, so I have an eighth grade daughter still at home, and I have grown sons and their significant others. So life is busy and full, but I'm always trying to come up with practical things that are going to help. So I know that everyone always says that as you get older, certain things just don't bother you so much anymore that might have bothered you in your 20s. So there's a accumulation of wisdom and life experience, and things just don't bother us so much anymore. And so a combination of just that life experience, a little bit of life wisdom, and then also just new information that has really challenged me to change some of my own thoughts can be has really helped me. So Erin with Oklahoma Family Network is always asking, hey Lauren, what do you think would be great tips and tools for families? So one of the ones we came up with was setting goals for the new year. This is kind of that time of year, the beginning of a new year, 2025, that people are always trying to set goals for change. But then we set goals, and if our foundation is kind of off, if it's based on, oh, I'm going to set a goal for all the things I don't like about myself, and I've got to fix all these things I don't like about myself, well, statistics show you quit pretty quickly. As a matter of fact, my birthday is usually the second week of January, and apparently the second Friday of every January is quit day, according to research. So this particular year, my birthday fell on quit day, the second Friday of the year. So what I want to give you is some tools on how to set goals and not just be realistic goals, but just have a completely different framework to look at that goal through. So there is this thing called self-compassion. Some of you are like, what the world is self-compassion? So self-compassion, it just involves you learning to respond to yourself in an understanding way, just like you would with a good friend. If a good friend's having a hard time or is struggling or has made a mistake. Um, we usually don't talk to ourselves that way. I know for me, I've become much more conscious of this since I had a daughter. So I have an eighth grade daughter, and I'm much more aware of my self-talk and the things that I say out loud, because I don't want my daughter growing up with any kind of negative self-image type things that I might be accidentally fostering in her. I would never talk to a friend sometimes the way I talk to myself when I've made a mistake. It's actually a constant joke in our house that I chronically lose my keys, I chronically lose my glasses. I have this thing you might not have heard of called ADHD, so I'm always misplacing stuff. And I remember before I'd be like, "Oh, for crying out loud, Lauren, you're a grown woman. Surely you can remember where your keys are." And I would say this out loud. And then when my daughter was young, she was about 2, and she's following me around the house as I'm looking for my keys, and I'm just livid because I'm late because I was already late. And she's like, "You okay, Mama? You happy, Mama? You sad, Mama?" And it just caught me. She's listening to everything I say. What if I could switch that self-talk to be the same kind of self-talk I would have for a friend? I would never tell a friend, "Oh my gosh, you're a grown woman and you keep losing your keys. What's the matter with you?" I would never say that to a friend. So that's what self-compassion is learning to talk to ourselves and change that inner self-talk to how we would talk to a good friend in a supportive way when we've made a mistake or having a struggle. There's three key components. Um, and one of them is self-kindness. We're going to talk to ourselves like we would a good friend. Another one is common humanity, just realizing, hey, we're not unique. We're not the only person making mistakes. This is a human thing. Other people across the world have these same problems. And then also having this mindfulness component. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of compare and contrast self-compassion with self-esteem. So I want you to have that understanding of this kind of filter that we're trying to set. And then we're going to shift gears into, all right, what if I am setting a New Year's goal? What if I am trying to make some positive change in my life? How would that look and sound different if I was using the principles of self-compassion to help me with that goal? All right, so this was very eye-opening for me when I was first just studying self-compassion on its own. And we do have a class we've done in the past called self-compassion, and there's a video about it. So some of this information is also similar in that, but we're going to take it a step further by really applying it to how we set goals for ourselves. But self-esteem versus self-compassion. I mean, even as a school counselor, I'm always like, oh, we got to raise kids' self-esteem. I've had a lot of training in self-esteem. I never really stopped to think about what self-esteem is. Now, self-esteem is kind of like your global evaluation of your self-worth. I judge myself. Am I a good person or am I a bad person? Now, here's the tricky part. In order to have a high self-esteem, I actually have to believe that I'm above average, that I'm better than half the people, at least in this area, whether that be looks or talent or, math skills or how I keep my house or, how much money I make, whatever the comparison tool that we're using. um, for me to have a high self-esteem, I have to feel like I'm better than at least half the other people. I've got to be above average for that. And it really becomes dependent upon success. If I have some failures, that's going to really threaten my self-esteem. Sometimes, without really thinking about it, it can lead to us trying to build ourselves up in order to make me feel better. I feel like I have to push people down. I see this all the time in the kids that I work with. I work with third and fourth graders, and kids will be like, "Well, yeah, I mean, like I'm a faster runner than you." They might be struggling with math, but they've got to make sure they roast someone else so that they feel better about themselves for whatever thing they're struggling with. So, you're not trying, it can lead to that kind of thinking, and it can also build on prejudice, starting to believe that a whole group is better than another group of people based on what we consider to be important. So that would be self-esteem. Self-esteem isn't a horrible thing, but at its core, it is based on comparison. Now, what's different with self-compassion? So if I've got my self-compassion talking to myself like I would a good friend, that common humanity, realizing that I'm not the only one in the world that makes mistakes. This is a human thing. And that mindfulness piece where I'm okay to sit with uncomfortable feelings and acknowledge my true actual feelings and have ways of coping with those. So if I'm using that filter, self-compassion instead of self-esteem, it's not how do I compare to others, it's how do I relate to myself? That offers all the benefits of self-esteem, feeling good, feeling positive, having, that good self-image without all the pitfalls of narcissism, like I'm the center of the universe, perfectionism, to where I feel like I have to be perfect in all things in order to feel good about myself, or that horrible social comparison. I can actually feel just fine about myself, no matter how I compare to others. When self-esteem deserts you, self-compassion is able to step in and give you a sense of being valuable, not because of your accomplishments, because you're a human being and you're worthy of love. Entirely different foundation. All right. Now let's also kind of take this a step further. So self-esteem and failure. All right, if I'm just looking at self-esteem principles, self-esteem kind of depends on success for me to keep feeling good about myself. A typical response to failure is to be judgmental, critical, and I try to bring about change by being shaming myself or being really hard on myself. That super critical inner voice. Come on, Lauren, you can do better. You can do better. Like that's going to motivate me for change. Now, interestingly enough, I'm having that kind of negative self-talk. My brain is going to respond to my thoughts and it's going to create a neurochemical cocktail, like things like oxytocin and adrenaline and cortisol. And it's going to create these different brain chemicals that will produce feelings that match the kind of words and thoughts that I'm having. So, you've heard all sorts of people say, if you believe you can do it, you can do it. Well, belief and having that positive belief actually produces the kind of brain chemicals that keep our brain energized. But what if my self-talk is negative? As far as my brain is concerned, there's a real person telling me that. It's not just my inner self-talk. that activates in my brain the threat response, which might be a release of cortisol or adrenaline. It builds up stress. And that just brain environment is not really conducive to serious systemic change, like sustainable change. It might actually be conducive to temporary change. There's no doubt about that. Just like a lot of people set their New Year's resolutions and they do really, really good for 2 weeks, or a month, but it doesn't always bring about systemic change because you are going to experience setbacks when you're making major changes. But with self-esteem, failure, that doesn't work. But what does self-compassion do when it comes to failure? If I can respond to failure with empathy towards myself, hey, yep, lots of people mess up like this. All right, what can I do? What's one thing I could do a little bit better? It doesn't require perfection. We're designed to positively respond to warm touch, warm words, affectionate tone. If my inner thoughts are positive, as far as my brain is concerned, that empathetic inner voice feels like a real human being talking to me, what does my brain release? It releases oxytocin and the body's natural opiates and natural endorphins and the feel good kind of brain chemicals. That's a brain environment that actually is much more inclined to be motivated, not motivated from shame, motivated from, empathy. And that can create more systemic change. Some other things, when you think about self-compassion, it's not based on how I compare to others. Does not require that at all. Wouldn't that be great if our New Year's goals or any goals that we set for ourselves are not based on how we compare to others? People feel compassion for themselves because human beings deserve compassion, not because they have some, desirable set of traits. Oh, well, they deserve to be treated well because they're pretty or they're smart or they're talented. It doesn't require that at all. With self-compassion, I don't have to feel better than others in order to feel okay about myself. I can actually be below average and feel just fine about myself. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm just going to sit there and be like, oh, well, I'm okay, you're okay, everything's okay. No, I can actually be honest with myself and without all the shame to bring about really positive systemic change. Self compassion allows you to be more open and honest with yourself because personal failings and actual things that do need to change for the better, I respond to those in myself with kindness, with empathy. I don't feel like I have to hide it from myself or from others. It allows me to be vulnerable. People do not connect to perfection. People connect to an open, honest, authentic, vulnerable person. Moreover, self-compassion it's not even dependent on everything that's going on the outside. It's always available when you're succeeding. It's available when you're just doing okay. And it's available when you fall flat on your face. And there's a ton of research about self-compassion. If you start digging into the research, it's beautiful. It's really cool. It's not just, me saying, "Oh, think happy thoughts." It's not like that. Research shows that in comparison to self-esteem principles, self self-compassion creates greater emotional resilience, more accurate self-concepts. I don't have to lie to myself. I can be honest with myself. More caring relationship behavior, because if I can love myself, it makes me more able to love others well, and a lot less narcissism and reactive anger. So that's just a little bit of background for the self-compassion filter that I might be able to start using in my life. Okay. Now, what does that look like when it comes to goals? So if I use self-compassion principles when I am setting goals for myself, research shows increased motivation. A kind inner voice can help you stay committed to goals, to change, to things that are difficult, even when it gets tough, because that kind inner voice is building me up, it's not tearing me down. So that increases my motivation to continue. It's hard. Change is hard. You're literally building new neural pathways in your brain. It's like you're carving out a road through a mountain. Sometimes it takes some dynamite to do that. It's not easy. But when I respond to myself with empathy, man, that can really increase my motivation because shame is only a temporary motivator. It also improves resilience. When I can learn that setbacks are the part of any process, resilience is the ability to bounce back from difficult things. People sometimes call it perseverance or grit. How do you develop resilience, perseverance, and grit when you fall down. It's not when everything is going great. I don't develop resilience when everything's going great. It's my ability to get back up, to keep going, to bounce back, because I acknowledge common humanity. Guess what? Other people have these struggles too. I can get back up. I can find inspiration in other people's struggle as well. And it really helps with a greater self-image. Can celebrate my accomplishments, no matter how small, and boost my confidence because, I'm not only doing that in how I compare to others. I can give myself, a pat on the back without having to be like, yeah, I'm not, there's no comparison involved. It's like me competing against myself, me improving against myself. So self-compassion definitely can help with goals. Um, the other thing too is it might sound a little different. All right. So a lot of times when we're setting a goal and we're finding something in our life that we want to change, a lot of times the way that we look for what to do is we're looking for things we don't like about ourselves. Maybe I want to lose weight because I don't like how I look. Maybe I want to get better at this, or I want to, be able to keep this area neat, or I want to be more organized. But if I'm coming at it from a different angle, it might be coming from, oh, these are all the things I hate about myself I want to change. So if I'm using self-compassion as a lens when I'm setting a goal, it might actually sound like, hey, I want to exercise for my health because that's how I can take care of myself versus, oh my gosh, I'm so lazy. I'm never going to be good or attractive or worthy enough if I don't work out. Now, I would, I can't venture to say what percentage of people set goals on this kind of shame based, like, oh, I hate the way I look, so I'm going to work out. What if we shifted? Hey, I want to exercise for my health. This is a way I can care for myself. I know for me, in my health journey, I've had some major health setbacks. I developed type 2 diabetes as an adult. And, the big motivator when I first at first I was like, how can I do this? I set myself up with these risk factors and wasn't watching what I was eating, all the kinds of things that led to shame. And then when I shifted gears and I'm like, you know what? I want to be healthy. I want to be able to be here for my daughter and for my children and for my grandchildren. I want to do this because it's good for me, not how could you get this way? It really shifted and helped me be more motivated. It also helps me not be so rigid too, because, I can make progress without having to have that rigid, shame-based response. So it starts with kindness. Then it helps us remember common humanity. It might now, I might be able to talk to myself like this. Hey, starting a new workout routine is hard. It's normal to struggle with this versus a self-esteem or comparison-based thinking, which would be everyone else has a fitness routine. I'm the only one dropping the ball. I'm the worst. I'm not required to compare myself to others. Common humanity, this is normal. This is hard. A lot of people find this difficult. And then also that mindfulness piece. Hey, I am feeling frustrated with how this challenge is and how long it's taking me to see results. This emotion will pass, but it's okay that I'm feeling frustrated. Versus, this is frustrating. I can't stand feeling frustrated. Why did I ever even think I'd set this goal? I shouldn't be feeling frustrated because things aren't as bad. We don't even allow ourselves to authentically feel the feelings. That's what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is not dismissing the fact that we have feelings. It is the ability to stay present with all my feelings of joy and excitement, my feelings of sadness, my feelings of frustration, my feelings of embarrassment and shame. I'm able to sit in those uncomfortable emotions, acknowledge them, do some mindfulness practices, and I'll have some links that you can, all this will be emailed to you so you can do that. But it really helps you learn to be comfortable and acknowledge, here's how I'm feeling right now. And there are specific exercises that we can do to help let those things go. So I don't stay feeling ashamed all day or stay feeling frustrated all day. So these principles, treating yourself with kindness, acknowledging common humanity, and having some mindfulness skills, that really helps with goals. It literally makes the reason behind why we set the goal coming from a completely different way looking at it. Totally shifts the paradigm, totally shifts the perspective. Part of this also involves turning off our inner critic. How many of us are like, I could have done better. I'm such an idiot. She's so much brighter than me. Those are very common thoughts. And those come from lots of different things. It comes from childhood, it comes from life experience. It also comes from this overwhelmingly social comparison culture. What is Instagram? What is Pinterest? What is Facebook? What is TikTok? If nothing but you see all these people that seem to have it all together. Well, guess what? You don't see their blooper videos. They could actually do a video or a picture of this perfect little room. You don't know what the rest of the house looks like. You don't know how many mistakes they made making that perfect looking dinner. You don't know. We don't want to see other people's mess. We want to see other people's perfection. So sometimes you have to be purposeful about if my inner critic starts to rear up the more I'm on social media, maybe I need to limit my social media. We have children who are being raised from the very beginnings of their life in this social comparison saturated culture. And I mean, I'm a school counselor of third and fourth graders, and to hear them say, "Oh, I'm having such a bad hair day." Common humanity, everybody has a bad hair day. You're supposed to have perfect hair in third grade. I wasn't even thinking about what my hair looked like in third grade. I was thinking about whether or not, I was the fastest runner in, playing tag at recess. But our kids are being saturated with these messages. And the underlying message is you're never enough. It's never enough. Because in a society that's really driven by purchasing and spending and purchasing and spending, in order to get you to want to spend money, they have to make you discontent. So we all have this inner critic. Turning it off can make it can be scary because it's all we know, but it can make a difference. So much so that a lot of us have this false belief that our inner critic, our willingness to, come on, Lauren, you need to get motivated. You can do this. We actually have bought the lie that that's what's going to motivate us to improve. Got to be tough on myself. I got to show myself that tough love and call myself out in order to stay motivated to improve. If you make a mistake and then automatically criticize yourself, this negative self-talk is research shows that's what contributes to you abandoning your goal. Because in self-compassion, if I hit setbacks, I can acknowledge my frustration and be like, yep, this is a very human thing. People will start a goal and then they'll mess up and they'll have an off day. And that's kind of part of the process. I'm not going to give up just because I have a setback. But if I'm following that harsh inner critic, if I make a mistake, I am all over myself. Negative self-talk just flooded my brain with adrenaline and cortisol and shame and all those things. And that might be so uncomfortable that I'm just going to abandon the goal because I can't handle any more failure. It might look like you missing one exercise session when you've set a goal that you're going to work out and then having a food or a Netflix binge with feelings of shame and guilt. So it's like this all or nothing kind of thinking. When I use and develop the principles of self-compassion, that disrupts that process because now I'm learning to talk to myself with some inner kindness. I'm acknowledging common humanity that everybody makes mistakes, everybody has setbacks. This is part of the human condition. Change is really hard. And when I'm using mindfulness principles and I can be okay with not feeling okay, that's really powerful. Totally disrupts this process. There's a guy, Kai Lostetter, where he's actually done a lot of research. And in his research has moved into mindfulness-based relapse prevention. So even for people facing addictions, the idea is that teaching the concepts of self-compassion and being kind to yourself actually helps prevent relapse into serious addictive behavior. So these principles, they can be very powerful for what I call practical, sustainable change. Not perfectionistic, not how I compare to others, but just sustainable change that's based in reality, but also based in the ability to be kind to myself. So, what are some principles when it comes to setting a goal? Like if I'm looking at mindful self-compassion or self-compassion, what might some of those steps be? First off, acknowledging those challenges. Challenges can be difficult. Be gentle with yourself when you experience those obstacles. It's it's acknowledging when I mess up, my inner voice is changing. set those SMART goals. So a SMART goal is supposed to be specific, measurable, achievable. Hold on, I just covered that up. Relevant and time bound to kind of help be create a realistic path. So if you want to, we don't want to spend a whole bunch of time on SMART goals, but you can look up SMART goals and there's all sorts of suggestions on what they need to be. Positive self-talk, learning as we are setting a goal and experiencing setbacks or being frustrated or making those changes, replace that negative self-talk, that self-criticism with supportive language, talking to myself like I would a good friend who's facing a similar challenge. If my good friend set a goal that they were going to exercise 3 times a week, and then 2 weeks into that, they miss a day and they tell me about how bad they're feeling that they missed a day, I would not be like, you are such a loser. I mean, come on. You've only been doing this for 2 weeks and you can't even work out 3 times a week. I would never talk to a friend that way. If we had a microphone in our brain, some of us, a lot of us, probably most of us, talk to ourselves that way. So really changing that inner voice and reminding myself I'm going to be friendly to myself like I am to a good friend. Also focus on that progress and not perfection. Celebrate those small wins and acknowledge rather than solely focusing on did I reach my goal or didn't I reach my goal. When it comes to like a parenting relationship, if we are only giving our kids positive attention when they've reached a goal or done something great or won something or got the A or whatever it is. What about effort-based praise? Acknowledging their progress. Man, you're working really hard on that. What if, as a family, we sat down and actually had set goals for ourselves and then we had effort celebrations. All right, how are we progressing towards our goal? And how much hard work we're putting towards that. What if we had effort celebrations? That'd be pretty amazing because it's focusing on progress, not perfection. Practice those mindfulness strategies. Be aware of your thoughts and feelings surrounding goals. Allow ourselves to acknowledge those negative feelings without judgment. Negative feelings are not horrible things. Negative feelings sometimes are honest feedback. When I'm feeling frustrated, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, when I'm feeling embarrassed, those aren't comfortable feelings, but they're important. They're important feelings to be comfortable with because it doesn't define who I am. Yes, I was embarrassed in this situation, but I'm not an embarrassment. Yes, I was ashamed over, I wanted to do better, but I'm not a shameful person. So, and it allows us to acknowledge the feeling without making it become our identity. And then embrace those setbacks and look at them as learning opportunities. Look at them as opportunities to learn and change and grow. I teach parenting all the time and weekly. And, just even last week when we were doing a parenting class and we were talking about problems, what if we as parents looked at problems that our kids were facing as opportunities for growth? Not, oh my gosh, what is wrong with this child? Oh my gosh, we've got some chances to grow. Embrace those setbacks. That's where we learn. Think about yourself in your life. Some of the greatest moments of growth where you've developed character and resilience and empathy and compassion and perseverance and grit and wisdom has come through struggle. Embrace the struggle. The struggle doesn't define you. When we are looking at it through the lens of self-compassion, through a good, healthy self-concept. All right. There's also, I think all of these principles really align well with growth mindset principles. So I always like to kind of connect the dots for a lot of people because you can branch off and study so many different things when it comes to self-compassion, goals, and all that. What about fixed mindset and growth mindset? There is a video on the Oklahoma Family Network YouTube channel where we did a class on growth mindset and really dug into that. This is powerful stuff for kids and for adults. So, fixed mindset is a very typical brain. So, in a fixed mindset, I avoid challenges. I shy away from things I don't know. Don't like criticism or feedback. Intelligence, in my mind, intelligence and talent is static. You're like, you have it or you don't. You're either smart or you're not. You're either athletic or you're not. You're either talented or you're not. And it doesn't really develop post birth. So I can look at other people who are successful in a certain area and I'm like, they were just born that way. We don't carry out any actions without seeking approval. I'm afraid of doing things on my own. I want for people to approve of me at all times. I'm always focused on proving myself. And so I keep setting the bar like, I got to prove that I'm worth it. I've got to do better. I've got to do better because I have this insatiable need to prove myself. When others succeed, I'm threatened by their success because what? Oh no, oh no, now I'm falling below average. I can't feel good about myself. So other people's success can be threatened. Effort is not regarded as fruitful. I shouldn't have to work hard. This shouldn't be so difficult as a fixed mindset. Understanding failure as a limit of ability. So if I fail, there's something wrong with me. I'm not able to do this. And with that kind of mindset, it really is easy to give up. Now, growth mindset, on the other hand, these are skills like applying the principles of self compassion really helps develop a growth mindset. A growth mindset approaches life with views challenges as opportunities for growth, like embracing the challenge because man, I'm going to grow. I'm always teasing kids at school. I'm like, man, you just made your brain grow. Give your brain a kiss. I watched a mom that I used to do home visits with who she taught her little 1.5-year-old, give your brain a kiss when she would do something tough. I'm like, what was that? She's like, I've just been teaching her ever since she was a baby that when she does tough things, she just made her brain grow. What a gift she gave her. Acknowledge and embrace weaknesses. I don't have to pretend that I'm something that I'm not. I can acknowledge and embrace my weaknesses and know that I have the ability with effort to change and grow. I'm able to learn to give and receive constructive criticism. It doesn't define me as a human being, it's feedback, not failure. In my mind, a growth mindset, intelligence, and talent is always changing. It's not static. It's not something you're born with. You can grow and change and get better at anything you set your mind to. Now, does that mean you can be an Olympic athlete if you work out every day? Maybe not. But that definitely means you can improve on your athleticism, if you put in some effort. You prioritize learning over seeking approval. I'm doing this for me, not so that other people will like me. We focus on the process instead of the end result. Other people's success is inspiring. I think of learning as brain training. I just made my brain grow. I understand that failure as is an opportunity to grow, and I persist in in the face of setbacks. What a difference. Fixed mindset, a lot of the foundational principles of self-esteem sometimes could be mixed in with fixed mindset. And all of self-esteem isn't bad, as long as my foundation is better. My self-concept of whether or not I'm a good person is just fine as long as it's not based on comparison to others, because that's where it's going to fail you. So growth mindset, setting self-compassion based goals, and all of those things really align well together. There's also a movement in growth mindset, this idea of marvelous mistakes, where you can combine growth mindset, self-compassion, and it really helps. So mistakes, typically we think of mistakes as negative. We just change our language a little bit. It can really shift our mindset when we mess up. So parents, teachers, students would change their mindset and look at mistakes as a growth opportunity. It totally removes the shame. Nobody wants to admit mistakes because they don't want to be ashamed. If I look at mistakes as a growth opportunity, that was a marvelous mistake. The shame is gone. It also makes children more likely to own up to their mistakes. If we're really wanting kids to take accountability and own up to their mistakes, well, I can own up to my mistakes because it doesn't mean I'm a mistake. What if we started changing how we talk about mistakes? They're feedback, not failure. It gives you the chance to change and grow. It's a part of common humanity. Everybody makes mistakes. And I even have one of my favorite stories. Um, there's a first grade teacher at Jenks Northwest Elementary where I used to work. She's absolutely wonderful, the most patient person ever. And we were doing a big push on growth mindset. It was part of kind of my school counselor guidance stuff. And I sent out a bunch of information. Hey, if you want to show these cute little videos in class, this might be a good thing for your morning meetings and all that. So she just went gangbusters with it. And her class got really excited about this concept of marvelous mistakes because their teacher got them excited. And she was like, all right, guys, we're going to make some marvelous mistakes today. Your brains are going to grow so much. Let's set a goal. How many marvelous mistakes are you going to make? Because that's proof that you're doing tough stuff and your brain is growing. So her morning meetings, kids would set a goal. I'm going to make marvelous mistake today. And then they'd be doing their math, where normally kids would like cry and they'd be like, made a marvelous mistake. Like they were excited about making mistakes because it was proof that they were doing tough stuff. And where it really came to fruition is when I'm walking past her classroom and this kiddo comes running out. And this is a kiddo who really struggled emotionally and behaviorally. In the past, in kindergarten and in pre-K, if he made a mistake, he would lose it and it might get so bad that he trashed the room. It might get so bad that he had to go home for the day because he just couldn't reset. He was, working with he was having a lot of struggles. So he come running out in the hallway. I knew this kid and his typical behavior, and he's like, I make this mistake. And he's kind of mad about it. His teacher's whole demeanor. You did? Show me. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see how your brain grows. And he goes up to her and he shows her what he couldn't figure out. It was like some cutout thing. They were trying to align these things and glue them on a piece of paper, and he was super frustrated. It's like, oh, look at you try. What'd you try? Okay, what do you think we could do different? Oh man, I am so proud of you for trying and not giving up. That was a marvelous mistake. And he went back into the classroom and he like went about his business because his teacher was able to change his mind about marvelous mistakes. That really aligns well with self-compassion. That really aligns well with setting goals for ourselves and doing tough things with that lens of self-compassion as well as a growth mindset. So if you want to, I mean, you could dig into growth mindset and it is just really powerful stuff. What if we set a new paradigm for our schedule? So this is where I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear the sound of the video. Let me see really fast if I set that up. Dun, da, da, da. I'm hoping, let's see here, video settings. Okay, I'm thinking it should work, but we'll see. Um, Sometimes too, like when we're setting goals for how we're going to keep track of all the things that we have to keep track of in our lives, we want it to be perfectionistic. I saw this video, it just blew my mind. I'm thinking about, I changed my mindset about how I finish the laundry. So, Erin, you give me a thumbs up if you can hear the sound or not. Here we go. Oh, man. Well, I'm not quite sure how to make that work in the Zoom. I think there might have been something I needed to set up at the beginning. So anyway, basically, um, this Mel Robbins, she's wonderful. I follow her. She's fantastic. So she's like, I can't be the only person who looks at me not being able to finish the laundry as I'm a failure. And that is common humanity. All of us have laundry. I don't know anyone that has unlimited funds that they can just go buy new clothes to wear every day of the week. So that's common humanity. And she's like, am I the only one who thinks I'm a failure because I just can't keep up with the laundry? And this lady comes and talks about cycle theory. And she goes, okay, look at laundry as a cycle. In that cycle, there are clothes that are clean. There are clothes that are waiting to be washed. There are clothes that are clean, but waiting to be put away. There are clothes that are waiting to be folded. All of that is a cycle. And she goes, at no point in my life am I expected to have every single thing in that cycle at the finished line. It's okay for me to have dirty clothes. It's okay for me to have clean clothes that haven't been put away. It's okay for me to have clean clothes that have been put away. It's okay for me to have dirty clothes that are on the floor that are still going into the hamper. It's all part of a cycle. But when we have this unrealistic expectation that every cycle in our life is supposed to be finished at the same time, that's not possible. Do I have to be ashamed that I have dirty clothes? That's part of the cycle. Just those little subtle shifts in our thinking help us embrace the challenges. Um, you know, Goals are a cycle. There's not, it's a constant process. Do I have to have perfection in order for me to consider myself to be helpful? Now, there's some other connections that might work too. Any mindfulness activities that you're already using, those will align really well with self-compassion. And those will align really well with you being able to manage your frustrations or your, you know, negative feelings in your process of reaching your goals. So if you've got some special breathing techniques that really work for you, you have some special mindful meditations that really work for you, use them. Think of self-compassion as just a filter that you can overlay other things. Self-compassion works really well with growth mindset. Self-compassion works really well with setting goals. Self-compassion works really well with parenting. I mean, it's just different way of looking at things. There's some great children's literature out too. One of my teaching colleagues, she lent me this book and it's called There's a Bully in My Brain. When we talk about our inner critic and that negative self-talk. So in this book, this kid's talking about there's a bully in my brain, there's a bully in my brain. And then he learns how to turn off the bully in our brain. We have a bully in our brain. That negative self-talk that says we're never enough or they're so much better than you. You should do better. Why can't you do better? You're such a failure. Look at you. I mean, you should know better. That's a bully in our brain. Sometimes there's so many good children's books out there that are really helpful for grown-ups too. But as we're learning, helping our kids learn that too could be really powerful. If I can turn off the bully in my brain and have a friend in my brain, what a difference that would make. Where do you go from here? So a good step, try unplugging. Comparison is the killer of joy. And if you're really working to make systemic change and sustainable change in your life, if I'm constantly being focusing on other people who seem to, and the keyword is seem to have it all together, that's tough. And sometimes unplugging is the only way to do that. Utilize those guided meditations and resources on the Mindful Self Compassion website. So I've included a couple of links here. They put some free self compassion exercises. And so all of these things will be emailed to you as well. Or if you're watching this video on YouTube, you can always message and request some stuff. Practice talking to yourself like a good friend. So just remember, it takes some time. If I've been a bully to myself in my own brain for, however many years I've been alive, just practice, change it, even talking out loud to myself. Like I've gotten better, not perfect, and that's okay, but I've gotten better. Like, oh, Lauren, there you go, losing your keys again, instead of like, what's wrong with you? Acknowledge frustration and difficulty and respond to yourself with empathy. There's also on the Self Compassion website, they have these 8 foundational exercises. So it's 8 things, and it's supposed to be kind of cumulative. You start with 1, move to 2, and then 3, then 4. If you practice these 8 different exercises, it really gives you a good foundation in self compassion and really starts to change. It like starts to set a really good self compassion filter. I mean, that could be a great thing if you work with other people or kids or have a group of friends and you guys want to work through the 8 self-compassion exercises. That could really be a great goal to set to kind of work through those things. And there's some really good exercises in there. One thing I do love when I'm frustrated is they call it the soothing touch. So again, your brain is designed to positively respond to soothing touch and warm words and empathy. So if you had a mess up and you've been working towards a goal and it's not worked out for you, just taking a minute. I mean, you can give yourself a hug, you can kind of, rub your hands on your arms and out loud, you can be like, you know what, sometimes this can be really hard. Setbacks are normal. This has been a frustrating day. It's going to be okay. And I'm literally comforting myself. And I'm training my brain to comfort myself. And that helps me to continue to feel motivated. So that's a really good one. Also, remember, it's okay to not be okay. Acknowledge how you feel, not how you should feel. Acknowledge how you're progressing, not how you should be progressing. Step away from that social comparison because I can tell you there's always going to be someone better than you, more attractive than you, more wealthy than you. There's always going to be someone better, blah, blah, blah. Just step away from that social comparison. And if you can do that and you have kids, you starting off with doing that can be a really good model for them. Embrace where you are now. Show yourself that kindness. Recognize your shared humanity. You're not the only person in the world with struggles and that other people have similar feelings. Support each other. Find your village of people who are encouraging. And ask how their self-talk is going and how their goals are going, and have them ask you how your self-talk is going and how your goals are going. That kind accountability could be really powerful. You're amazing just the way you are. You are worthy of love and kindness. You can do it. And change some of those hurtful rules that we set for ourselves. Like this one, rerun the dishwasher. I was reading an article, and this person visited their therapist and they were just so ashamed that they didn't do the dishes, and then they were ashamed that they put the dishes in the dishwasher but they didn't rinse them, and because they were really struggling with depression. Like doing the dishes was a monumental task. And the therapist said, rerun the dishwasher. But what? But I mean, that's a waste. So if you are so tired that all you can do is get the dishes in the dishwasher, you don't got time to rinse them, then run the dishwasher twice. So is there a perfect way of doing the dishes? So these rules that we hold ourselves to, these standards that we hold ourselves to that are unrealistic and based in shame. No, I'm not saying that we don't want to be motivated to do things better and to improve and change and grow until those impossible standards become heavyweights. And then we're constantly feeling like a failure because the standards we set for ourselves are perfectionistic and impossible to achieve. We're humans. I don't care what that person looks like on Facebook. I don't care what their profile looks like. Nobody has it together all the time. They don't. That's okay. Some other suggestions. Just also remember the brain's a pattern seeking device. It takes time and a lot of repetition to build a new neural pathway. So, if we're starting with self compassion and building that new neural pathway of kind self talk, that's going to take a little while to do that. New Year's resolutions that have this self compassion lens really are more sustainable and achievable. And I heard a good rule of thumb that really helped me years ago. I read it in the Oprah magazine of all things. She actually used to put out a really good magazine. I mean, there were fantastic articles in there. I would always laugh about, the different jewelry that was recommended, like a $1,200 bracelet. I'm like, well, I don't think I'm going to be able to do a $1,200 bracelet. But there were other articles that were great. And it said in there that for every year you've been doing something, it might take a month for you to start to see some change. So let's put it this way. If you're 40 years old and you have had negative self-talk for 40 years of your life, it might be 40 months before you start to see some really, permanent kind of things are really, really different with progress all the way up through there. Give yourself time. Big changes take time, and that's okay. It takes a lot to repetition. And these principles, what I don't want you to do is to be like, okay, I'm going to work on my positive self-talk and talking to myself with kindness. And then you have a day where you're negative self-talk and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm having negative self-talk. As you're trying to learn positive self-talk, it takes time. And sometimes it also takes support. Maybe that support is a therapist to help you work through some stuff. Maybe that support is a good, healthy friendship. Maybe that support is stepping away from some toxic friendships that might be, keeping these negative patterns alive. Whatever that means for you, just remember it takes time. And that's, oh, you already know how to be a good friend. Learn to be a good friend to yourself, especially when you're making goals. Now, this will also be emailed to you. There is something called the self-compassion test. It's kind of really cool. I did this when I was in grad school in one of my classes. She had us do this, and it literally gives you a number, it quantifies and puts you on a scale of how you're doing with your self-compassion. Because a lot of times, I scored actually pretty low on it when I first took it. I had really low self-compassion, but I'm really nice to other people and I'm the first person to offer to help. So I thought I would score high. You know what? I was really nice to everyone else, not myself. And so it was really eye-opening for me to see my score. And so that is a great thing. You can literally Google self-compassion test, or if you're watching the video, you can take maybe a screenshot of the QR code. But that's a really good place to start too. And just, hey, how am I doing with self-compassion? Because I want to change my filter so that I can bring about good, healthy change for all the right reasons and set goals that are sustainable, um, because that's going to make me have more peace in my life and richer relationships. Um, PowerPoint links will be sent to you if you've registered for the class. If you're watching this on YouTube, just reach out to the contact information and they'll send you stuff. I have my email there. And then there's also a good link to a couple of articles I found online when I was doing research for this that I referenced. in the presentation. Setting goals with self-compassion. There's a really good article and a good Google search that kind of could, if you want to do some more research on this, they definitely, these articles informed some of the things we talked about today in our presentation. So I'm wishing the best for you, you awesome human who is going to make mistakes and is still worthy of love. And hopefully this is something that's going to help you make some of that good, healthy, sustainable change. All right, Erin, that is all I have. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, thank you so much, Lauren. We appreciate your time.